Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Silk Screened Jewelry for Beginners, brought to you by TinyPandora.com. Before we begin, I want to remind you that my daughter and I are on every week on Facebook. In fact, we did a version of this class on Facebook, and it's kind of fun to do it live with you because we can answer questions and chat with you. That's every Saturday on Facebook. There's a link in the description box for you. So today we're going to start with some Sculpey Primo. That's alizarin crimson mixed with some yellow gold glitter. And I'm using this gorgeous silk screen by Oh Joy Creations ink. And I'll leave you a link to it down in the description box in case you want to get it. It's one of my favorites. I start all my silk screening by making sure that my surface is as perfect as I can get it. And that's really helpful because if there's going to be a gap in your motif, it's probably going to be a little irregularity in the sheet itself. So I just go over it quickly. I use the parchment rather than just the oil on my hands because that can repel paint too sometimes. So I'm going to place my silk screen down with the shiny or sticky side down. And I'll take a minute to place it so I can make sure I get the maximum out of it. And once I like where it is, it just takes a second to silk screen. I'm settling that down, making sure there's no bubbles. I don't want bubbles underneath the screen, and I don't want them underneath the sheet itself. So just be feeling with your fingertips, making sure there's nothing bumpy that you can run into. So here's a little more white than you need, strictly speaking. So I would suggest probably a little bit less than that, but that's okay. We scrape it off with our little squeegee and wipe it off on a paper towel. And you want to have those items handy. You never want your paint to dry in your silk screen. You want to keep your water on your work surface. And I use plastic shoe boxes for storage, so I always have a lot of them around. And that'll keep your silk screens nice. Just drop it right in there and wash it when you're finished. So here's this beautiful screen. I just can't make enough things out of it. I've already made many and I'm going to make more. It's just got everything going for it and I can use it in so many ways. She's got plenty more silk screens too to adapt to anybody's taste. Whatever you're trying to design, she can cover you at Oh Joy Creations. Ink. I have to add that because if you don't add it to the search, you might not get there. So got to add the INC. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. And I use the tops of my little plastic shoe boxes to store something like this because it doesn't stick and I can set it to the side, get it away from my elbows. Make sure I don't run into it before I'm ready to. So now I'm going to get my favorite texture stamp. This is a love letter texture stamp. It's the only one I carry because it's the one I keep using. I may get more someday. There are a couple more that I like, but I love this one. And I do my textures this way because I can really feel where I am on these. When I'm just pressing down on the rubber side, I don't know, I guess my hands aren't that strong, but I can't really feel if they're stuck or not. If your hands are sticky or the clay's real sticky, you can shoot it with a little bit of water. But I was probably in pretty good shape here. I didn't really need any today. So when I get to that other part, you'll see I've got my silk screen, or excuse me, my texture sheet. I've got it cut down to just the edge where the script shows. And that way I can lean it right up against the other one. And I can kind of make my writing look cohesive and kind of like paragraphs. And I like the way that looks. So don't be afraid to trim your texture sheets and your silk screens really, to make them more easy to use the way that you want to use them. So we're just placing this face down. Both these sheets are a number 1, by the way, the thickest setting. And that way I'm going to have plenty to work with when I go to put my findings in here. And don't be misled about pieces being light. I've seen that customers perceive lightness as some kind of cheapness, and it's really not fair, but it's kind of a perception that's there. So if your piece seems a little bit more hefty, a little bit more weighty, that's considered value by the buyers, and I've seen that over and over again. So I'm going to use my paper to do this part too, because I want to make sure that those two sheets are really stuck together. There won't be any seam in the sides when I cut through there, because I know it's stuck together with no bubbles. Now I can cut. Depending on the cutters you're using, oh my gosh, there's a million to be had. I've kind of been using the same few shapes for many years, as is my habit. That oval one makes such pretty pendants, such pretty bracelets. And it really lends itself to this design too. You can see my little script on the back. It gives it a lot of character. You can use all kinds of effects on the back. You can use mica powders or paints to enhance that script if you want to. I've done that before. It was really cute. Now I'm going to go into my sides because I've got those cute little arch shapes. They're going to be such good earrings. And I'm not worried about the bottom straight half there because that'll be cut off so that they're even. I'm just worried about cutting the top parts even, and I'll make them match when the time comes. And there's the one that's shaped the other way for the bracelet. And I've got some nice ovals for my earrings. And you can see those ovals, I just cut a little arch in the bottom of them to make them that shape. I'm going to take my 1/4 inch cane bender. That's the thinnest rod that comes in the set of 4, TinyPandora.com. I use it a lot. If you've got something around the house, like a little piece of like a hanger wire, it's about that thickness. And it's the one that I just use all the time. So I tuck that in there and smooth it out now because you may not be able to see it on this shot, but there's a little ridge where you cut things. And I don't want to have to cut that off. I don't want to have to sand it off. I'd rather smooth it off with a rod before it's baked. So I'm going to pop in my findings. And this is really why this is a beginner project. If you can silkscreen a sheet of clay, you can cut out some beautiful shapes, and you can put in findings, you're home free. Okay, you can do whatever you want and enhance those as much as you want to, like we will with charms, and with adding maybe paints to them and all kinds of things that you can do with those designs. But just as they are, they make beautiful jewelry. So I think beginners could really make some impressive pieces just by doing this. So you got textures, silkscreen, cutters, findings, and that's really a pretty easy way to start, I think. So when you make your little slit up there where you want it, just open the slit gradually. You don't want to just poke your knife in there and try to, take it into the hilt, because that's going to cause it to distort those little wavy edges. And, they're delicate and they're harder to restore than you might think. So just make a very shallow cut to begin with, and then go in a little bit at a time and make sure your findings are where you want them. Now in the bottom here, I'm going to use an ice screw. And I'll show you a different way to do a finding on the next piece, but this one is very simple. And I actually screw the little screws in there, okay? Now let me tell you something about these tiny pointy swabs. I had to throw them in here today because I was cleaning up this acrylic paint with a little bit of alcohol. And it's a really good trick because where you cut your piece out of the silkscreen sheet, it's not always exactly how it's going to look good. So in other words, this one needed to be cleaned up in the bottom to give more emphasis to that little center dot and to line it up better with the eye screw and just to make it look a little more thought out. See, my Q-tip can remove whatever acrylic paint I want to before it's baked. But anyway, those tiny pointy swabs, I wish I had had them when I did this because they are the best thing ever. I've never seen anything so small and accurate. And they're from Little Windows, and I'll give you a link below because I use them constantly now. I think they're a great invention. So we're doing the same thing with these. We're getting these other pieces pierced with the craft knife so that we can stick a finding in. And I'm showing you a different finding, and this is pretty neat because you don't even have to have a spoon bail or any special finding. All you have to have is just this little eye pin, and it could be a head pin too. But I've got this little eye pin, and it's just bent in a U shape, and that little round eye in there is going to be like an anchor on the other side of that straight edge. and that's going to hold that in there really well. Now, I'm not using any adhesive with my findings because I'm putting them in well. I'm kind of smoothing them up wherever I put them in, around the tops of them. And I'm going to put a dot of super glue in there if necessary at the end. You can use Bacon Bond or liquid clay for these findings, but it's still a temporary adhesive. You're always going to need a stronger glue for finding security. The bottom of this is going to have a ring in it, and this ring is a little bit thicker than any of the wire that I showed you or the other findings. So when you have a thicker finding to put in a spot, just remove a little bit more of the clay and leave yourself some space so that you don't end up with a bump in there. Those little rings just add a lot to everything. Now with the rhinestones, I didn't do it too much in this video, but you press them in there and you make an impression where you want your rhinestones, and then you bake it. Just leave them in there, and then once it's baked, you take them back out. A little piercing tool if you can't get it out of there. It's in there pretty good. But they're definitely not permanent. You never want to think that glass to clay is permanent without some kind of adhesive. So see, instead of taking a chance on the Bacon Bond and maybe not getting enough of a bond, I just pop them where they're going to go, so I know they have a nice little nest to sit in, and then I super glue them, and then I add Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss. And I didn't do it in this video. I was kind of emphasizing some other things, but I'll leave you links because I've demonstrated Magic Gloss many times. And the same goes for this little thing with the charms. I've made all kinds of charms on video for you. I think you really enjoy it, and I'll leave you a link to that also. But I'm just having fun at this point, thinking up cute things I want to hang from that center ring. You can use your beads, you can use your metal findings, and I always use chain because as I fill that chain up with glass charms, it gives a real kind of a fluffy, full feeling to it. It makes it look prettier. So there's my bracelet. There's the pendant. And we've got our earrings, a couple pair of earrings. Those are painted with some Inca gold with just a little paintbrush. Kind of gave them a folk art look. And there's the ones with some chains attached at the bottom. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll make some jewelry. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.